lap? He does not. He's left. All right. I think we should be live now. Thank you everyone for attending the second session of the day. Thank you so much to Catsma, who was just here for the previous session. We raised over $400. Oh no, we almost raised $400. So let's see if we can add to that for this episode. I'm here with Jeff White, who is the author of UX Storytelling Toolkit, which is one of my favorite courses out there. And I feel like most courses aren't really worth the money, but this one is such a great deal, $150. And you get to learn all about telling stories in UX presentations, as well as to stakeholders, interviewers, everything. It's pretty awesome. Jeff has been just so helpful for a lot of designers out there who are currently looking for the next job, and also for people who are struggling to communicate to their stakeholders. Jeff, your background is also really amazing. You worked on the Fire Phone at Amazon before setting off to do your own agency work. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. And thanks for all the kind words. That was a great introduction, Hang. And thanks to you for everything you've done this week. You and Lex have really done amazing stuff. And it's just awesome to see. I'm glad to be a part of it. So thanks for everything. And again, those are super kind words coming from you. So thank you. Yeah, a little bit about me. I've been in the UX design world for seemingly forever now. I'm old AF. I've been doing this for like 24 years now. I think I started, my first job was in 2002. So I have a long history in UX design. The first half was as a full-time employee. I worked at Amazon for about 6 years. I worked for a couple other companies before that. And then after that, I became more entrepreneurial in my career. I was the co-founder of a tech startup, and then started my own agency shortly after that. And that's been about 10 years now. So I'm running a design agency, doing my best to help designers advance in their own careers. And yeah, that's me.
What led you to create the UX storytelling course?
So I really all of a sudden had a bunch of free time. I'd been running my agency for, I think at that point, about 9 years or so. And the economy got grumpy for my agency, just like it did for everybody who got laid off from their full-time jobs, especially in the United States. We don't need to go into what happened with the economy, but I lost a bunch of clients in my agency in that time as well. And I kind of needed a break from what I was doing with the agency. And so I had a little more time on my hands. I started kind of poking my head up out of the sand after not being very social in the design community for a while, and just saw what was happening on LinkedIn, saw what design creators were doing. Noticed that not too many people at that time were talking about storytelling, presenting work, communicating, kind of softer skill type stuff. And that was, I'm good at like everybody, I'm good at some things in the design world. I'm really bad at other things. Storytelling and communicating and working with people had been one of my strengths over the years. And I had learned kind of the hard way how important it is and how much it really matters. Didn't really see a whole lot of design creators talking about it, and just thought, oh, this might be an opportunity for me to share what I've learned and help a bunch of people and try something new. And that's kind of why I started doing this and created the course.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I really enjoyed the course, and I feel like there's some chapters that really hit it home for me. Can you, I guess, kind of describe like what was something that you were seeing in people's portfolios that really needed your course? Like, what do they need to improve upon?
Oh my gosh. So portfolios, there's kind of like two big different ones I think about. There's
Yeah.
like the online portfolio that you use to get interviews, and then there's the private portfolio presentation that you use during the actual interview loop, right? So I think if we think about the private portfolio presentation, I just would commonly see a ton of just basic presentation mistakes, like not understanding how to do good slide design, not understanding things like, hey, don't put up a slide with a ton of bullet points and then read it to your audience. Um, Things like that. So there was kind of basic presentation mistakes. There was more higher level strategic mistakes that I see people make a lot, where I think one common mistake is people come up with their case studies, they put it together, and they think that that's it. And then they use that for every single job they interview for. Sometimes there's not much strategic thinking in terms of what is this specific job I'm interviewing for right now? Who are the people I'm interviewing with? Who am I presenting to? What do they really need? What do they really want to see? And how can I tailor my message and my presentation to speak more to them and to be more persuasive, be more effective, and really land more job offers. So I think it's a combination of like basic presentation mistakes and then higher level strategic thinking about interviewing and getting jobs.
So would you be recommending that people look at the interviewer's LinkedIn profile, trying to identify their backgrounds and what their needs, or
Oh,
is it another
dude.
process?
So I think, yeah, absolutely that, and anything you can do to learn more about the people you're communicating with or presenting to. And this is kind of, I think this is the biggest secret of any communicating about design. It also is the biggest secret about sales and marketing. All these things are kind of connected. But I call it audience insight. If you're communicating with people, if you're giving formal presentations to people, who are the people in your audience, right? What do they care about? And how can you speak to that in your presentation? The more you understand whoever it is, the hiring manager or the panel, the role, like what's really important, and then tailor your presentation to that, the better off you're going to be. So absolutely, if you can stalk people on LinkedIn, if you can have relationships with them, if you know people in your network who've worked with them before, anything and everything you can do to learn about them is smart to do that and helpful. Oh, you're muted.
Amateur. This is fifth time. Fifth time. So I'm
it's,
doing this
it's been a
thing
long
where
week for you, man. You
I'm
get grace.
sure, but so I donate. So I'm doing this game where like I donate more for each time I forget to unmute myself or like my stream craps out. So we got one crap out so far. One,
Okay.
we got like four forget to mute, and also one where I just freeze and forget the question I was gonna ask. So it's not gonna add up. This is the entertainment part for me. But yeah, the question I have would be like when you describe tailoring your presentation, understanding their backgrounds, their needs, their problems
Yeah.
that they're trying to solve. I agree with all that, but that's very abstract in some ways. Like, can you kind of walk us through a specific example of how you would go about doing that?
Sure.
Let's say for a PM or something. If you need a moment, I can like just kind of cut to the donation part to give you some time to think through it because we just had another $50 anonymous donation come in. Thank you so much, whoever you are. Please message me so I can thank you personally. Please, folks, donate. Hit the QR code on the bottom right with your phone or look in the comment section. I'm going to post a link in just a second. Every dollar helps Tiffany rebuild her home, her house after the fire in Altadena. It's so meaningful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Jeff, back
thank
to
you.
you.
And Hang, can I take a second and talk about the fundraising piece too, and then we'll totally go in and answer your question. But thank you to whoever just donated, and I'm gonna give some stuff away to people who are donating during this hour. Anybody who donates $25 or more, I'm gonna put you into my course for free. It's usually $150, so I feel like that's a pretty good deal. So anybody who donates $25 or more, you'll get a free copy of my course. And then anybody who donates 100 or more, you'll get the course, and I'll do a free hour of one-on-one personal coaching with you around whatever it is you want to talk about. Focus on storytelling, or we could talk about other stuff too. So please keep the donations coming in. And then, okay, Hang, back to your question. I think it was specific examples
Yeah.
of how do you tailor your presentation to the people you're interviewing for. I'll give two examples. One is a basic one. Let's say you're interviewing for a role, there's always like the job description that's sometimes pretty fluffy, right? And then you get in, you start talking to people, and you learn what the role is really about. Let's say you're applying for a role that's is going to be heavy in prototyping. It'd be a really good idea if in your private portfolio presentation, like within the first minute, show some awesome prototyping work you've done. Find ways to hit on that. Focus on that aspect of your work and your experience in your portfolio presentation. Don't make the audience wait until the very end to see a prototype you did. Bring that up. Find ways to just brag in non-cringy ways or cringy ways if that's you, or whatever it is, whatever works for you. But if a role is heavy in prototyping or whatever it is, focus on that more in your presentation. You really want your audience to feel like, and the quicker the better, I think. If you can do this very early in your presentation, if they're feeling like, wow, look at all this cool prototyping Hang has done, he is the right person for this role. That's the vibe you want to be giving to people. So understand what the role is about, understand what your audience cares about, and focus on that in your presentation. Another example, I was doing a coaching call with someone recently. They were interviewing for a role that was kind of strategic in nature. It was a bunch of different internal teams. It was connecting dots across those teams. herding cats, managing all the stakeholders, kind of bringing all that stuff together and collaborating and leading at that level. But their portfolio presentation was kind of process based. It was skills based. They had all this experience doing that sort of strategic design work across a bunch of different teams and orgs. They just weren't talking about it in their presentation. And so that's one of the things we worked on. It's like, how can we get these nuggets from your skill set and your experience and like bring them to the forefront in your presentation? So I hope that gives some clarity and is a couple examples of what we're talking about.
It does. Now, I think the hard part is when we talk about visual things, it's easier to instantly give people the gratification that they're looking for, right? Like if they're looking for visual design, prototyping skill set, then you just put it to the very top, like, bam, this is the visual design skills
Yeah.
that I have. And people can they can grok it, they can pick it up within like 5, 10 seconds. I feel like the hard part though is when they're looking for skill set that takes longer to validate and to verify and to understand. So stakeholder management, like that's a extremely important skill for many jobs, but how do you communicate that quickly early on when you're in
So
the yeah
no, go ahead.
yeah what you're in the interview process, right? Like usually I feel like that's usually at the end of the process when they're asking behavioral questions, when they figure out are you good at stakeholder management, as opposed to early on when they're doing the quick resume and portfolio scan to decide if it's worth it to even get you on a 30-minute intake call with a recruiter.
Yeah. So there's always a way to do this. We could talk about it. I could give examples in two different ways, like how you could do that in like an online portfolio towards the beginning of the hiring process or a private presentation towards the end.
Yeah.
If, let's say, you're trying to figure out a way to do what we just talked about, like stakeholder management across a bunch of teams in a complex environment. Um, Imagine like the case study thumbnail on someone's portfolio landing page. I worked on this project. There's going to be like a little introductory sentence and maybe a paragraph or two below it giving some context. You can just say, I led the redesign of this whatever SaaS application across 12 internal teams. You could just say stuff like that. I'm making it up on the fly, so this sounds terrible. But you can just say what you did. You can talk about the complexity in your role and what actually happened in the project. That's a lot more compelling than just saying stuff like, I redesigned the SaaS app for a fintech company or something like that, right? Talk about the complexity in your portfolio. Talk about it in the bullet points of the job in your resume. If we're talking about a private portfolio presentation, and same example, you can have portfolio presentations should be very visual things. You talked about it's easier to grok visual things. We're designers, we communicate visually. There's always some simple way to communicate something that's complex. So if we take this as an example, I led this design effort across all these different teams. Look how complicated this is. Show an org chart of all the teams that you worked with. Just a full slide thing. Look, here's this org chart. Look, you can see how complicated it is. And then hear the designer talking about how they collaborated and communicated and led across that org structure. That's another way to communicate that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So it sounds like, well, first of all, you got to identify what kind of complexity they're asking for. So
Yeah.
either, stakeholder management across a complex organization versus complex data or complex products. There are ways to show this in a visual manner so that people grok it quickly, as opposed to just say, I am great at complex things, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there
So
other, yeah, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Oh, I was wondering if there are other ways to show this besides using visual metaphors and to announce that I am good at complexity.
So I think, if we're talking about like answering interview questions, that's another opportunity to demonstrate this
Yeah.
stuff. And like, I think you kind of hit on this a second ago. It's all about matching your answer to, the question and the role and all that stuff, right? So if the question is about some sort of complex communications, magic across a bunch of different teams, your answer has to match that, right? To position yourself for the role. Um, if we're talking about other ways to show this besides like putting an org chart up in your slide and then just speaking to it verbally, uh, you can just say, oh yeah, I was in this exact situation with this other client or in this other project, and here's what we did. Here's what was difficult about this. Here's the problem, and here's what I did in this situation, and here's what happened. That's also, I don't know if I'm answering your question, Hang, but I think
You
that's
are.
another way to show your experience with that specific thing and walk somebody through what the situation was and what happened. Therefore, proving, hey, I'm the guy for this, right? I've done this
Yeah.
before. I'm a professional. You're in safe hands. I know exactly how to solve your problem, and and I'm going to demonstrate to you why.
How do you how do you navigate this if you have not solved the same problem? Because let's say you worked in a different role before and there's a new role that you're really interested in, and but you
Yeah.
haven't solved the exact same problem. I know when the market was better, hiring managers were more willing to take the risk of hiring somebody who's a little bit different than their expectations. But nowadays, it's almost like they're asking for an exact carbon copy of experiences. So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that you can assure those hiring managers who are risk averse that you are the right person for this job if you haven't done the exact same thing they're looking for?
I think there's a hard truth at work here we should talk about, and then you kind of hit on it, which is just harder to do that right now. Hiring managers have the luxury of choice, right? There's a ton of competition, so it's harder, and it's always easier to, especially in times like this, it's easier to get the kind of work you've done before. So if you don't have the exact experience, I think just that's just something to be aware of. It's going to be more of a challenge for you, most likely. Now, all that said, to do what you're talking about, Hang, I think you just have to do the best you can. Again, you understand what the role is asking for, what it needs, and if you don't have the exact thing, what are the closest things? What are other nuggets of experience or skills that you have that are relevant to this role, to this hiring manager, or whatever it is, and just focus on those. It's okay if you don't have the exact experience, right? But you're, and I guess it kind of depends like on what stage of the hiring process we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
But if we're in the final stages and it's kind of getting down to it, and I'm trying to say I'm qualified for this, I probably know a lot about the role and about you as the hiring manager, and you've got to use your intuition and judgment and highlight the parts of you and your career you feel are most relevant. I don't know if there's like a magic formula to do that, but um, you got to do the best you can if you're in that situation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I want to do a quick update on donations. I think Allison Gretz just donated $100. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's very appreciative of you. It means a lot. Also, Jeff, thank you so much for your giveaways. That's incredibly generous of you as well. So that's a really big discount. That's like 80% discount on your course, which I think was worth it as full price. So thank you both for being so generous. And for folks who haven't donated yet, please, if you can spare a few dollars, please donate. We have a suggested donation rate of $25. If you can donate more, we always appreciate that. If it's less, totally cool too. Appreciate every dollar. It's going to help Tiffany rebuild her home and her house after devastating fires. Thank you so much. Jeff, I feel like I'm gonna like pivot a little bit over to the stakeholders aspect. Like you're already in
Okay.
the job, and I feel like you've got such a wealth of experience having worked at Amazon and their very particular way of moving projects forward and just making decisions like that. Can
Yeah.
you share some of your experiences and how storytelling has helped you climb the ladder there?
Yeah, sure. So this was I started at Amazon in 2008, and I was like 5 or 6 years into my design career at that point, and I was making the types of mistakes I see designers make a lot today, where they're just kind of focused on process, they're focused on the things that they did, they're focused on the hard skills and just doing the work, and kind of thinking that's enough. And I will never forget my first kind of big presentation at Amazon was there's a room full of like 15 or so people in it. There were some directors and VPs, people like way above my pay grade, right? I was completely intimidated going into that room. I had done a ton of work on this thing. I had all my stuff laid out in this document. I started just basically walking people through my process and describing what I did. Like, here's how I did this, and here's what I did. This is a description of the UI. And very quickly, it just got my meeting completely got taken over and railroaded. It just completely went off the rails. Um, and I just felt horrible. I was like a deer in the headlights. It was one of the most difficult experiences I had been through. I'm like, oh my God, they just don't get it.
Yeah.
What have I done? I can't do this. My life is over. My career is over. It's terrible. And that is when I learned that just having the hard skills and doing the work and understanding the process is not enough in many situations, especially when we're in that mid-level of our career and we want to grow. And I really needed to understand like what happened. And, and I had to start thinking about who are these people I was presenting to? What did they care about? What was going to resonate with them? How could I communicate with them in a way that would be more influential? And that's when I started learning. At Amazon in particular, at least in the time I was there and the teams I worked with, there was a very specific way that their kind of culture was built up and kind of the political capital and how it operated and what it was. And it was very much a culture that appreciated deep work, considering a range of options and then making smart recommendations based on what you're trying to do.
Right.
So Amazon, at least the people I was working with, was not a culture where it was like, I came out of my design space and I'm revealing this grand solution to you. Here it is. Like 99% of the time at Amazon with stakeholders, that didn't work. What did work was, here's a recap of the problem. Here's a recap of the goals. This is what we're trying to do. This is the situation. Based on that, here's a range of options that we looked at. And I think this is the one for us, and here's why. That is what really worked with those folks. It was less about, there's always exceptions, but it was less about process and less about just describing the design and more about showing that you went through an exhaustive process of looking at different options, and then you used your brain power, right, to go, this is the way we should go, and here's why. And then you have a discussion about that and make a decision together. I feel like this is too long of an answer maybe, but
No, this is amazing.
that's what worked at Amazon. And I've used that same approach. I call it options and analysis. A lot of designers do this. It works in a lot of different situations for different companies. It doesn't always work, but that's kind of what presenting at Amazon was like. And, like my journey into understanding, storytelling really matters. And here's how I can get good at it.
Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
really, really enlightening. Thank you so much. We have a flurry of donations just come in. Mike Thomas, two more anonymous donations, and Theodora. Thank you so much for donating and the offer you're giving out, Jeff, is only for this segment of the episode, not for
That's
all
right.
of them. So
That's
we
right.
have a deadline of only 34 minutes left. So please donate in the next 30 minutes or so to get your prize from Jeff on the UX storytelling course. So thank you
Awesome.
all. We're over $300 just for this episode, and we're just not even halfway through. So thank you
Let's
so much,
keep
Jeff.
going. Let's keep going. Yeah.
So
Thank you, everybody.
I feel like so first of all, that's like really harsh lesson. And I feel like all of us designers have those lessons, those battle scars where we meticulously plan something for this big presentation with the big wigs and we just completely bomb it. And it just like, there's just so much shame. And just like, that was my big opportunity, right?
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst. So I feel like while we all have it, we don't always figure out how to navigate that. And it takes a bit of finesse and work to figure out what is the right way, because not all organizations show you how to do it.
Yeah.
So how did you learn that at Amazon? And do you have a framework in place for other people to figure out the culture and the process at their unique workplace that could be entirely different from Amazon's?
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked earlier about audience insight. This is a part of building that up. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Let's say, well, maybe I'll just give a brief description, then we could walk through some examples if that's helpful. But again, you've just got to, I think, one, just have a mindset where it's kind of like designing something. It's like doing product design itself. You're going to try some stuff, you're going to fail, things aren't going to be right, you're going to iterate, you're going to learn as you go and kind of get it dialed in over time. Figuring out how to exist in whatever culture you're working in right now is the same thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something where you can experiment and try different things. You can do research and learn about what works and what doesn't work and just get better as you go. So I think just having that mindset where it's okay to fail, you're not going to be perfect overnight. It's going to be a learning process. It's going to be a project that spans weeks and months and maybe years, right? And that's okay. That's just how it works. So I think that that general mindset is important. In terms of learning how to actually do it, I think there are a lot of different ways to do this. If you're new into, you're starting a new role and you're trying to kind of just get a lay of the land, if you can attend design reviews and watch other designers present and just be a fly on the wall, I know it's not always possible to do that, but if you can, do it. Just go in there and be a sponge. Watch the designer present, see what happens, see what works, see what doesn't. Learn from that and apply it to your own communication style and presentations going forward. If you can't be a fly on the wall in existing reviews, go and you're working on a design team, or you can even do this outside of the design team. If you got a big kind of like dog and pony show executive presentation coming up, you've never presented to that exec before. Who do you know who has presented before? Go just send them an email, send them a message, show up at their desk, whatever it is, buy them a coffee and say, hey,
Show up at their home
I'm
unannounced.
knock on their door. Yes. That's totally fine to do. Yeah. But do whatever you can, network. You don't just network outside of your job. You do it within your job too, within your teams. Go hook up with people who've presented to this person before and ask them, what's this like? What should I expect? What should I avoid? What works, what doesn't work, and learn that way.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's really helpful to know. I think also like a lot of times you're working in a company where there aren't that many successful designers, unfortunately. Amazon's not one of them, but I've
Yeah.
been in companies where I've been the most senior IC designer and trying to figure out how to present my design work in that environment was extraordinarily difficult because there is no framework in place for how the executives view design and what they value within design. So the way they're communicated to by, say, marketing or sales is just radically different.
Yeah.
And that's always been successful for those teams. And trying to leverage that for design has been like extraordinarily hard for me as a designer. Do you have any tips around that when you don't have a design framework in place yet? And you're having to learn from completely different functions like sales or marketing to figure out how to communicate effectively to, say, the CEO.
Mm. I haven't been in that particular situation before, so I can't speak from experience. But I would apply basically the same playbook we just kind of walk through. Just you're just not doing it with designers. And I think that in general, this has kind of always been my style, but just be scrappy. Do what you have to do to learn. If you don't have a design team and you got to go outside to marketing or sales or whatever it is, product management, go network with folks ideally at your level, like you're in your peer group in terms of seniority, who have done the thing you're trying to learn to do, present to whatever executive it is, and build a relationship and learn what you can from them. Get exposed to other meetings or business proposal reviews or whatever it is that's going on in your company. See if you could be a fly on the wall to that. That's how I would go about it. What did you do, Hang?
Me too.
I'm determined to interview you a little bit in this session too, and because you're doing so much, and I know you're losing your voice, so I
Too.
want to make you talk, of course.
Yeah, you're a
But I don't know.
sadist.
That's how I would go about it. But
Ooh, how did I
how did
do
you
it?
do it?
I mostly screwed up over and over again until I just banged my head against the wall over
Yeah.
and over again. And I think what I did was I realized one executive respected this other person a lot. Like their voice at every meeting, just even if they didn't give the most logical or rational explanation for why they believe in something, the decision maker would say, Jenny, that's correct. Okay, yeah, we should consider this. We should do it this way.
Mm,
And I felt like that was I see the difficulty was that Jenny didn't showcase how she went about doing it. It was like they built up a lot of trust over the years. So I am not privy to all the invisible and historical work that she did to build that kind of trust and cachet with the chief executive. So I couldn't really copy that on the surface. I couldn't just be
yeah.
like, I'm going to talk like Jenny and then say, that's never going to work. Right. So it took a long time of just like maybe talking to her, getting to know her, and just kind of like figuring out the like what happened beforehand. Like what is her career like at this company? Because she had a very long run at the company, and they worked together for a long time. So at some point, after we built up enough trust and rapport, I asked her, I was like, hey, listen, this executive is quite intimidating. I don't
Mm,
really have a great track record of getting things pushed through, and it doesn't seem like they trust a lot of things I'm saying. Do you have any advice or tips for me? And and Jenny was amazing. She was like, okay, well, usually he likes to ask questions this way, and he's going to like probe and prod in this method. So you need to be ready for that kind of response. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's against it. It just means he's interested, if
yeah.
anything. And at the end of the day, you just need to have that kind of rapport and history with that person to really push for things. And then that kind of like clicked in my head because I realized that all the most influential people at that company have been there for 10 years or longer. And that was really tough. That's a tough pill to swallow because it meant that for me to get to that kind of influence level, I would just need to invest that kind of time and energy into this space. And it kind of created this question of, is it worth it? And I think
Mm,
while I never really figured out the exact solution or antidote for my issues, it kind of pushed me to a point of like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think that's really helpful because then you have the option of exiting this cycle that you're in and realizing that maybe the game is a little bit stacked against you because you're battling against people who have that kind of history with that person of 10, 20 years. And you're probably not going to win most of them. So if you do want to win, it's not about being right necessarily. You just kind of have to build that kind of interpersonal relationship. And that just wasn't me necessarily at the time. Like I just didn't have the skill set. I didn't really believe in doing that. But that's kind of a decision I had to make. So not a great answer, but more of just how I viewed my experience as a designer, if
yeah.
anything else.
Yeah.
And
No, that is a great answer. And it's great to hear about your experience. Thanks for humoring me and talking. You told me before this privately, well, not privately, but just before we started the session that you were losing your voice. So sorry I made you do even more
no, no,
speaking.
this is cool. This is cool. Part of the game is to like see what I sound like on Friday tomorrow. Like, am I Kermit the Frog or am I, what am I gonna sound like? Am I still gonna sound like the same person?
You sound
That's the
great.
fun part. Thank you,
You sound
appreciate that.
fantastic. Yeah, you do.
My normal voice is actually like 2 octaves higher, but nobody knows that. I want to mention I want to call out some of the donations. You can't see the name here because of StreamYard and their crappy integration with LinkedIn. But Tino
Boo.
Garcia says he's already donated, but he already has your core, so he's just showing support as an LA native. So really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
And Terry Perona says donated. Thank you so much, Jeff and Hang. Thank you, Terry. We really appreciate you. And Andy as well. Thank you for donating. Miranda, thank you for commenting and showing engagement. LinkedIn user, I can't even see who you are yet because the chat is always super laggy because that's just how LinkedIn works. But we do have the donations coming in. We're like way over $400 now, Jeff. You might actually hold the record, and mostly
Amazing.
because of your generosity in giving such a steep discount to your extremely worthwhile core. So thank you so much for doing all this.
Thank you, Hang. And just a reminder to everybody, this is great. Thank you so much to everybody who's already donated. We have Hang, are we going for a full hour? So we have 22 minutes left. Is that right?
Whatever you're comfortable with. I know you're super busy. I'm
Yeah.
flexible. Whatever you like.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go for a full hour. And just a reminder to everybody: any donation of 25 or more will get you into my course. Anybody who donates 100 or more will get you into my course. Plus, I'll do a free hour of one-on-one coaching with you. So thanks to everybody, and let's keep going. Okay.
All right.
Hang, I just mini interviewed you, which was really fun for me, and
Yeah.
then heard about your situation, which is a tough one to be in, right? Like it's hard when the answer is, oh, well, if you want to be more influential with Bob, you just have to work here for a decade. It's that simple. Like it's hard to deal with that, right?
Yeah, but I get why you can't discount that. Like you can't
Yeah,
judge that. You have to understand that these people have been through so much together, and you're just never going to be privy to all the things they've been through, the context that they're operating from. So if anything, it's like me just kind of oversimplifying and discounting the rich history that they have and the
yeah,
culture that's been set there. So I think a lot of designers, we come into an environment where like it's a meritocracy, and if we just like show our worth in the first 30, 60 days, we're going to get what we want out of it. And that's just not how it works. Cultures are incredibly complex, and they're not always logical, but they do make sense if you have the full picture. And I
yeah,
think designers rarely do internally. They just think they know the users, but
yeah. It's not that simple, unfortunately.
it's not. I want to ask because like you made some really interesting decisions in your career. You left Amazon at a time when everyone else was trying to get into Amazon, and you started your own business. And that I feel like now we're doing it more so often. Like designers are considering this because they are in situations where like, okay, well, I've been laid off. It's hard to get a job. I need to consider contracting because there's more work in this area
Yeah.
currently for whatever reason. And you made that decision at a completely different time. Like, what's the decision making matrix that you used to get to that point, and how has it been?
So the short answer is I went out on my own after becoming really burnt out in the corporate tech scene.
At
And
Amazon? No way.
uh-huh. Shocker, right?
I don't believe this.
I know. Um, I mean, that's really the short answer. And Hang, you mentioned like the decision matrix. Like I wish that I had some fancy matrix or framework to make life decisions like that. But um, for better or worse, that's never been my style. I just kind of more of a go for it type of person. But yeah, I'd been at Amazon for 6 years. The first 3 years was working on Kindle. The last 3 years was working on Fire Phone. That was at a time in Amazon's history where I think they really earned their reputation as kind of a bit of a burnout culture. They'd had a bunch of bad press about some things that happened in terms of how they treated folks. And I was there during that time. It was a grueling experience for me. I want to be careful because I'm not an Amazon hater. I learned so much working there, made a ton of friendships, and um, generally liked the company, but it was a difficult place to work also. So it's kind of a mixed bag. It was like really great things, really difficult things. But I mean, at the end of my tenure at Amazon, I was going to a doctor, dealing with anxiety and just being physically and emotionally and intellectually exhausted. And I think it really forced me to really, for the first time, which is, kind of comical and maybe a little bit sad for me, but for the first time, just take a step back and go, how am I living my life, and what is my career, and what do I want it to be? And I think that was really the first time that I thought strategically about the kind of life I wanted and what I could do to go about having that. And I just got super intentional about how I was going to spend my time. Um, I'm kind of jumping ahead. Like this is just to showcase what I said earlier about
Yeah.
not thinking things out and just kind of going for it. Sometimes I knew I was burnt out at Amazon and decided I was going to leave and basically take a little break and figure out what to do. And instead of doing that, I became the co-founder of a seed stage tech startup, which is a freaking terrible thing to do if you're already burnt out. This is
Why?
not advice that I am giving out. Don't do that. Do not do what I did. But I went and did this tech startup, and that lasted for about a year and a half, and then that kind of ended. All the startup-y things that happened with startups happened, and then that's when I really started out on my own. I had kind of gotten a taste of entrepreneurship being the co-founder of the startup, and I just fell in love with it. And I was also having this epiphany about designing my life, I guess. And I just chose to go out on my own. I I started in a really, informal way, I guess, a really laid back way. I was just like, okay, the startup is over now. I don't want to go back to the corporate world. I want to be out on my own. How do I do this? And the way that I started was I literally emailed 20 or 30 people that I knew and just said, "Hey, I'm going to start contracting or consulting. I have no idea how to do this. Who has advice for me? Like, how do I start?" And there's a saying that I'm sure you and many of us have heard that's if you want advice, ask for money, and if you want money, ask for advice. And that was true in this situation. I emailed folks and said, "How do I do this? Please help." And 30 days later, I had my first consulting gig. And that's how it started. And so it really is true. Like if you make a pitch and ask somebody for money, they're more likely to say to kind of play you off maybe and just give you some advice instead. But if you ask for help, people generally are generous. People generally are good. They want to help. And the way to help is often by extending an opportunity, telling you about a job, hiring you, maybe. A lot of times that's true. And that's what happened for me. And then, so I sent that email, and then like 6 months later, I was on my second project. A couple of years after that, I had a couple of designers and a couple of different clients, and it just kind of grew from there.
I'm just realizing that I got several people to donate just by asking them to please come on the show, and they were like, "I'm too busy." I'm like, "Okay, well." They were like, "Oh, well, here's some money because I don't want to
There
feel
you
bad
go.
about this." So you're
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
everyone here, we don't want your money. We want your advice. So just go to the GoFundMe and give us your advice, if you know what
Yeah.
I mean.
Also give us your money too.
Yeah.
Donate. Help the people in
But
LA. Yeah.
that's so, oh God, that's so brilliant that people don't always give you what you ask for. So you should ask for something different.
Yeah, it's happened. It's happened multiple times in my career. Sometimes, sometimes I think out of pity. Maybe I had this thing happen to me where something happened. I broke my ankle. I had to have this big surgery. I couldn't work for a while, and I could walk again, and I started just having coffee meetings with people. And I was having one with someone who actually was working at Amazon. He was a past client. He was at a different company. I did a bunch of work for him through my agency. Um, we kind of weren't in touch for a year or two or something, and then I recovered from my surgery and just reached out and had coffee with him, and we were just catching up, kind of as friends. And I kind of told him what was going on, and he's just like, "Oh my God, that's terrible. I have a project. Come work on it." And that was another situation where it was just kind of like, "Hey, I'm just catching up." And then it turned into like a 6 month project for this team at Amazon. So things just kind of happen like that. And I don't know what I feel like we're off on a tangent here. What?
Mm. No, this is brilliant advice. And
Okay,
I
good.
just, I gotta say, I don't think you'll believe how much money has come in since you announced this. We're at $17,397. We broke the mark easily. We went from 63% to 67% funded. So, Jeff, you're amazing. Thank you so much. You want to call
You're
some of the
amazing.
no, this is all you, man. Like if I'm just here by myself chatting away, nobody would be donating. But I
Oh,
say,
oh, come on now. I think
no,
everybody in the chat can tell us how amazing Hang is.
okay,
I bet you. I bet you we can get some comments.
uh,
But no,
pre-
Hang, for real, you're amazing. Everybody who's donating, you're amazing too. This is awesome. That's
yeah,
great to hear, Hang.
yeah, thank you so much, Priska Eakins, $100. Thank you, Anonymous, $25. You're awesome. Please, send us a screenshot of your receipt to both Jeff and me. You get the course. Oh, thank you so much for donating. Carla Fernandez, $150. That's big. Thank you so much, Carla. thank you for your support. Really appreciate you. And Angela Zeitz, $100. Thank you. Nathan Greenwall, Genesis Resendez, $100. Thank you. Thank you. More anonymous. Andrew Wright, anonymous, $50. Diana Rivadeneira, sorry, I'm so bad at pronunciation. And Vivek Pargania. Oh, I'm not gonna. I'm so sorry, folks. As somebody whose names gets butchered all the time, I feel your pain. I am now the perpetrator of the abuse that I've suffered. Oh, Florentino Garcia Jr., $100. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been amazing. I tell you, I think we might be like over $500, maybe like closer to 1,000 at this point. Jeff, that is a
Awesome. This
new
is great.
record. That is huge. That is
Awesome.
huge.
Thank you
Um,
so much, everybody. Hey, hang real quick. Can we
yeah.
make sure that people like I don't understand how people are going to get in touch with me so I know who to put in my course or
Mhm.
schedule time with. Can we make sure people know what to do, or do you have some like way you're already tracking this, or do people need to do something?
So I'm so disorganized, as you can tell from the late invite and everything. But folks, if you donate over $25, please send a screenshot of the receipt to Jeff and also to me, or just to me, so that Jeff doesn't have to deal with he can deal with less of the back end logistics. Just send it to me, and then I'll let Jeff know the names and the emails and stuff, and then we'll work it out.
Okay.
And also, whoever donates the most for this episode, let me know, and I'll give you 3 hour coaching. We can talk about anything you like: salary negotiation, content creation, or like early stage job hunting with your portfolio. I've just seen hundreds of portfolios at this point. I kind of like know how recruiters and hiring managers decide within the first 10 seconds if this is the right person to chat with or not. So please, um, reach out to us, reach out to me, send your receipt so I can tell Jeff. I think this is anytime between 12 p.m. noon to 1, let's say like 1:10 or 1:20 p.m. Eastern time. If your donations within then, please send me the receipt. And Jeff, I'll let you know who to send it to and all that jazz. I'm going to donate
Awesome.
$100 as well because I definitely want to chat with you after this and get some advice because you got great
Awesome.
stuff. Ask for money if you want advice and vice versa. I didn't even realize that. And I'm like thinking through just like the last few hours. I'm like, hey, that's actually really damn accurate. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. Jeff, do you have any other parting advice before we free you from this torture?
Oh my gosh. This is not torture. This is really fun. And
Yeah.
by the way, this is my first ever live stream, Hank. So thank you
What?
for forcing me to do this. I really appreciate it. It's really been a good time. And this is the first time you and I have met in person. We've
No
like,
way. Yeah.
talked
Oh,
over
crap.
LinkedIn and stuff for a long time, but you and I have never actually met in person. So I was looking forward to get to meeting you and just being a part of this. And this is really fun. So thank you.
Likewise.
Um,
I thought we were old friends this whole time.
We are. We just have never met in person.
Have you met any LinkedIn content creators in person?
I haven't met anybody in person. I saw that you and Jeremy Miller met. Um, well, I mean, I've done like a lot of video meetings like
Yeah.
this, but not like physically in person. I saw you and Jeremy Miller met in New York, which
Yeah.
was a cool picture to see. But no, I haven't done like a IRL meetup yet.
You should. It's fun. I met it. I live in New York City, so it's like a little bit easier. People just like come by New York every once in a while. So if you do come by New York City, let me know.
I
You know,
will.
yeah, I got restaurant recommendations. Everyone else in the chat as well. If you're in New York City, always happy to hang out and also chat about food and any recommendations if you're coming to visit. But anyway, back to you, Jeff. Any lasting advice, party advice?
I think there's so much stuff we could talk about. Probably the most important thing is to just have that kind of realization, kind of that epiphany that you and I both, I think, kind of learned the hard way, Hang, because a lot of all this stuff around communicating and stakeholder management and storytelling, it's typically not taught in the schools and boot
Yeah.
camps. Like you got to get out there and get your feet on the street and learn this stuff the hard way. But just have it in your mind that it's a thing. It's an important thing. It's another skill that really makes a difference for design careers. And we've done a lot of talking about kind of like the full-time world. It's also super relevant for people who are entrepreneurs like you and I both are, Hang, or are out there. You're freelancing, you're contracting, you're trying to run an agency, you're trying to make and sell products, maybe storytelling is super important for all of that stuff too. So just have it in your mind that this is a thing that matters for my career. It's also not mysterious. It tends to be mysterious when you're just kind of hearing people vaguely talk about storytelling and telling you to watch movies and watch stand-up comedians, which is like some of my least favorite advice out there about storytelling. But it is a skill that can be learned just like UI design. You don't have to have some natural ability to be good at this stuff. There's a set of tools and tactics and strategies that anybody can learn and start improving at. And yeah, just know that it's a thing. Know that it's going to be important, especially when you're out of the first 2 or 3 years of your career. It's going to become more and more important as you advance, and it can be learned. So I think maybe that's what I'd say.
Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
So you got great storytelling advice, and I think what's actually really fascinating to me is that you are able to consume information and then turn that into actionable advice around storytelling, which I think is extremely difficult to do. What are you doing to kind of turn that or evolve it into some kind of a lesson around storytelling? Because just like even when you said like you want money, ask for advice, like it's so succinct, and it's like it screws with my mind a little bit. I'm like, that makes no sense. And I thought about it. I was like, oh, I can come up with like 5 examples just now of how that is relevant and accurate. And I think storytelling is so universal to like all our work in terms of communication, in terms of like design. And most of us just like never evolve to the point where we see this as a thing, let alone be able to turn it into actionable advice. Sorry, this is a bad question, but I'm actually really curious. Like, what is it that you're doing that's like helping you do this? Like, I feel like this is another higher level skill.
Do you I want to make sure I
Yeah.
understand the question. It's not a bad question. But I think you're kind of hitting on like brevity, like how do you distill things down and get to the point? Is that what you're meaning, or is
No,
it
no, no.
something
Like,
else?
no,
Is it
no.
something different?
Things are happening all around us, and
Yeah.
most of us don't see it as like this is UX storytelling, or
Ah,
this is things. People are just like, this is happening to me. This thing sucks. I
yeah.
could get better at it. That was a bad experience I had where I floundered in front of the CEO, and you saw it as like, okay, this is something I need to do. And I feel like that's the difference between what you're doing and versus like what I was doing, which was just like, oh, I screwed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, you suffered through it and kind of took it personally, I
Yeah.
think. And which is what a lot of us do. I did that for a long time. I see people do it today. I don't think there's some secret or some magic trick that I'm doing this behind the scenes to do that. I mean, it really was. I went through some painful experiences. One in particular was very painful, and I guess just had a realization and learned it. Like maybe that was just luck or circumstance. I don't know, but it was just a realization I had that, oh, I'm playing a different game now and I need different skills. And I just started thinking about it that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
I
just
don't
trying to
know.
figure out like what causes that epiphany. Maybe it's like I took it personally and then I wasn't able to kind of get out of that mental loop to see that this is an entirely different game and you need to like learn the rules of this game.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the tough part for a lot of people to
Yeah.
really extricate themselves from that situation, not take it personally and see it from a different perspective or different level.
Yeah, it's difficult to do, and this is something that's kind of murky. Some of us are really fortunate to be surrounded by people who are already good at this and who are guiding and coaching and kind of helping us learn on the job. A lot of times, to the point that you made, that doesn't happen though for a variety of reasons. And listen, man, that's part of why I'm out here preaching about this stuff all the time. Is that it is not everybody just learns this on their own for whatever reason. There's a lack of education and people teaching the stuff, and that's kind of one of the reasons I speak about it so much. Um, but yeah, lessons, important lessons are learned coming out of painful experiences. And, being in the room and flopping a big presentation is certainly, one of the more painful experiences you can have in a design career. So I think people learn coming out of difficult situations sometimes, and that's certainly what happened for me.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to release you from this burden because you've been such a trooper, such a champion of, this entire initiative. Thank you so much. We got some really big donations coming in. Melissa Birch, thank you so much. Harumi Takeshita, thank you. LinkedIn user, I gotta I hate this integration thing, but God.
I feel like
Quentin,
all the tools with this were difficult. Like everything I tried to do with like the way LinkedIn does it, and all it was just like, we could
yeah,
do better.
I pay for a separate service to do live streaming that connects with LinkedIn because LinkedIn doesn't have a user interface for live streaming. They have a reciprocal receptacle for that, but not an interface. So great. Angela, thank you so much. And Vincente, thank you so much. I think we're probably at $1,000. Probably I gotta calculate it, but
Dude, this is awesome.
yeah,
This is
no,
amazing, everybody. Thank you so
everyone,
much. This is
you're
great.
awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you for your time. I'll see you around, please.
Yeah. See
Yeah.
ya.
Thank you. Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you, Hang. Thanks for everything you're doing, man. You're doing great.
Thank you.
Keep going.
You're great.
And thanks
Awesome.
everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to hang out for a few more seconds. We're going to talk about the upcoming schedule because there are so many more events coming out later today and also for tomorrow. Oh, hey, Victoria. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, this is all the work of the folks, the guests who are here who are making this possible. I'm going to share my screen to show all the folks our next upcoming events. So these are the past ones. Upcoming, we have. Ooh, yeah, we're done with Jeff White talking about UX storytelling.
I'm
Raised
still here
almost a,
though. I'm still here,
you are
like
still
stalking.
here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Jeff. And yeah, I think we got close to $1,000. So I got to calculate it. I'm super excited about this. It's a new record, and please message me. You have another 20 minutes to donate, and I will tally up all the receipts and let Jeff know who gets the UX storytelling course and also who gets the hour coaching, which will include me because I got to donate right after this. And then we have the live portfolio reviews with Miranda Slater happening at 1 p.m. right now. So folks, go over to the Luma page, lu.ma DGMMM. Please go there and you can sign up for this session with Miranda. Excuse me. And after that, we have Hang with Design Better co-founders Aaron Walter and Eli Woolery. That's gonna be really exciting at 2 p.m. So you can, of course, access this session over here at Luma. And then at 2 p.m., I'm gonna get a break as well
You
because
deserve it, Hang. You deserve it.
yeah, so Nicole Landry, design director at Dropbox previously, and Ron Golden, who is the design director at a bunch of really crazy, amazing companies like Walmart, Meta, where else? He's been at a bunch. I think it was at Google as well. But yeah, he's been at a bunch of different places. They have amazing perspectives, and Nicole's is gonna help me out by interviewing Ron. I think we're gonna interview each other. I'm just gonna be the background, and you're gonna learn from some of the top two design directors in the business with really big names in their resume, and they're gonna be talking about design hiring from both sides. They've done a lot of
Wow.
hiring, and they've done a lot of job seeking recently as well. So that's gonna be really interesting because, like me personally, I have no idea what design directors show in their portfolio versus ICs, and they're probably gonna run us through that. So I'm gonna ask questions as well. And then we have Debbie Levitt. So interesting fun fact about Debbie and me. I went on my first live stream on Debbie's live stream, and that was really cool. It kind of kicked off my content creation, side
That's
side
where it
gig.
all began.
Kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of. I started writing, and she saw a post of mine. She's like, "Oh, you want to come to my live stream?" I'm like, yeah, sure. And that's probably my first 2 to 5,000 followers in the audience. So
Wow.
yeah, it's all Debbie. So I owe her big time. So she's going to be talking about strategizing in the current design market, which has been really, really challenging. And part of her book is, life after design. Like, what do you do if you're going to move outside of design? Are
Mm.
there other careers that could be analogous or could make use of your design skills? And I think that's going to be really interesting. And then An hour after that, we have Ryan Scott, and Ryan Scott is crazy amazing. Ex Palantir, DoorDash, Airbnb. He's worked at all the top companies, and he's got such a knack for identifying companies at an early stage before they get really popular. So he goes
Mm.
in, gets the RSUs and then the IPO, and he's just raining money. No,
Smart,
I'm kidding, but
smart.
it's really smart. Like legit, if I'm looking for a job right now, I'm gonna be like, Ryan, I need to put you on retainer, and you're gonna like consult to help me identify the startup that I want to work at because you
Also
got
smart.
the Midas touch, right?
Yeah.
And he's gonna be talking about job hunting strategies and also product strategy because he has a Maven course on like product strategy for designers. He has an MBA from UC Berkeley, I believe, so he knows like all that stuff really well, and that's just gonna be really amazing. I think his Maven course is quite I don't say he's not expensive, it's worth it, but it's like near $1,000, I believe.
Mm.
So this course, I mean this hour, totally free, with the suggested donation of $25. Please attend. Really appreciate that. And then we have AMA with Yvonne Shao, and she's a content designer at Uber, and she is awesome. Like if you see her on YouTube, she's got a bunch of crazy, like really good advice for people. And even though I'm not a content designer, I still follow her content. She's great. She's always like, oh, I don't know if people like need to hear them. Like, no, this is great. She's one of the best content designers out there. I occasionally chat. I actually connected with her because I saw a really great user interface flow on Uber where they gently nudge you into taking a shared ride by
Mm.
showing you where you'll be picked up in like the front or the back of the ride. Because my worst nightmare is I'm the first passenger and the last passenger, and there are like two other passengers in the middle with two stops or two pickups. That's
Yeah.
my worst nightmare, and that's happened to me before. So she designed this flow where it guarantees you that you are the middle passenger.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the flow is brilliant. It's like save $10 now. You have 30 seconds to save $10 now. You guarantee that you'll be the middle passenger, so you will not be making any stops from your pickup and your destination. And I was like, that's really smart. You like nudged me into this option that was good for the business, and also you understood my needs as a user, and it was a timer on it, which typically makes me a little bit iffy as a designer in terms of like the deceptive patterns,
Uh,
but she explained it so well that I like knew immediately, felt like I had enough time to make that decision, which makes sense because the driver needs time to like
right.
get to you if you go for it. So she's super talented, and I think she has a lot of great stuff to say. And then we have Lex Roman, Florian Butler, and Lynn Visser talking about should you start a newsletter? And the short answer is yes, you should. But also they're going to tell you, why or which newsletter software to use and how to start it. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got so much more. Oh, this is all tomorrow. So I'm going to save my voice and grab some lunch and then see you all folks at 2 p.m. Please, come back, donate some more if you can. And we're going to learn so much together. I think next is Ron Golden and Nicole Landry. Yeah. So see you all then, folks. Again, Jeff, thank you so much for staying
Yeah.
on, for your
Thank
kind
you.
donations, and giving your course to everyone for such an amazing price. Thank
You're
you all.
welcome. Thank
See
you.
y'all soon.
Enjoy your break. Bye.
Take care.